You know, I'd say one of the biggest things is how you develop the next round of leaders. Like you alluded to, in a work at home environment, I look at how I met people and engaged with people. It was literally the water cooler talk. It was in the break room. It was in conference rooms. How you develop leaders and just engage and get to know people, it's just changing so dynamically. So people who promoted me at Wells Fargo met me in the break room. I don't know how you recreate that in a work at home environment like we do today. So I'm fearful that the opportunities I had, there's people that will deserve those opportunities and will not get them just because of how our culture has shifted to more of that work from home model, kind of more, individual type performance.
Hey, contact center, customer experience friends, welcome back to another episode of Contact Center Journeys. I'm super excited to be bringing my guest, my friend, John Coulter, who is a senior VP of sales at 5-Star. John, welcome to the pod.
It's great to be here.
Awesome. So, as vice president of 5-Star Call Center, 5-Star, John brings over 20 years of comprehensive contact center experience, spanning every facet of the industry. A driven professional, he possesses extensive expertise in analytics, multifaceted project management, contact center, customer service leadership. And John's successfully planned and executed outsourcing projects for top U.S. companies across the tech, financial services, healthcare, and retail sectors. So, as always, the intent of Contact Center Journeys is to inspire the next generation of CX and contact center professionals through sharing the stories of those that came up in the industry. Who doesn't love a great origin story? So we want to change the narrative in the contact center and customer service space that the jobs have no future. We have all personally met entrepreneurs, executives, and technology people in our space that started as agents or junior level leaders in contact centers and grew in this space. We really feel like it's important to celebrate these stories. There's never any sales pitches in contact center journeys. The content is free to use. Please, feel free, clip it, share it. All we ask, tag us, follow us, including our guests, on LinkedIn or wherever our social medias are. And with that, so without further ado, John, how'd you get into contact centers?
Like everyone, I think I dreamed of it as a kid growing up, right? That's what we all go to school for, is contact center. Well, it's call center back then. That's all it was. But no, I kind of fell into it, to be honest with you. My story goes back probably further than most. When I was 6 years old, I got babysat by someone named Joel Sylvester, who fast forward 15 years later, reached out to me when I graduated from college and said, "Hey, I've got a job and a need." And he was at Wells Fargo and a senior leader. So that's kind of how my journey started, was way back when I was a little one. He must have been grooming me at a young age to be a contact center executive, I guess, someday. But fell into a job at Wells Fargo doing collections like you, Fred. We all start on the phones, not the greatest job in the world. But I think you learn a lot. You learn a lot about yourself, but you learn a lot about organizations and culture and structure and teamwork. And it was really a great kind of ground for me to learn from that end of it. So I would say my journey started at Wells Fargo. Fast forward 20 years later, I still work for Joel Sylvester. So, we'll get into it more about how I got here and kind of my evolution. I got into it just like everyone. You just kind of fall into a career and then you really just build upon it.
Yeah, so you were a collector. Now, for those that don't know, that's no joke. That's like, throwing, diving headfirst right into the deep end. So you started as a collector on the phones.
Yep,
Yeah.
subprime credit card. So let's just, I mean, we'll just throw it out there.
Cool.
You learn a lot about finances, that's for sure, and what you are and are not going to do with your life very quickly.
So what'd you do from there? I mean, you started as a collector, right? I'm assuming there's like steps in this journey. Joel didn't just, take you from there right into senior VP.
Yep, I would say the biggest career advice and decision and how I kind of fell into my roles, um, mentors really got me to where I'm at today.
Yeah.
Joel's been a mentor for 20 years, but he also pivoted me to different departments and different groups to really evolve my skill set. So, my time, my first, 6 years when I was there, I got to do project management, got to do mortgage, got to do sales, got to do customer service. So I kind of got pivoted to multiple departments, multiple roles, managed, probably thousands of agents over my career there. Um, I was kind of during the boom, which was kind of nice. So I got promoted at a very young age, but then got to experience all of those things. What came along with that is, just working with colleagues and mentors and, people within the industry that are now, my colleagues at Wells are now all over the country. So it's kind of fun seeing where they're at. And most of us are still in some sort of contact center somewhere. So hearing what they're doing, what I'm doing, sharing best practices has really been kind of a fun journey for me.
Cool. So collector, project manager. I'm assuming you spent some time supervisor, manager. To walk us through. I mean, tell us the journey.
All
Give
right.
us the details.
Yeah, starts as an agent, then you go to your team lead, right? So where you become like a sidekick. So if people got deals like in collections they couldn't collect, I was the guy. I was the guy they'd bring in to close it and really help build. My time there was great. I would say from a company willing to work with their customers, that was us, right? A lot of payment plans, a lot of options out there. Just really learn to work with people of all walks of life. Never judge a book by its cover, obviously, because you never know what's going on in people's lives. So I'd say
Yeah.
we did a very good job just getting to know people and their situations and working with them on that. So got promoted to team lead. Really, my ability just to engage with team members, engage with customers. Got promoted to supervisor very quickly, and then ultimately got promoted to manager and then project manager. And then it was kind of fun because then you can pivot departments and divisions. So I got to manage a lot of different agents, a lot of different departments. The things you learn the most is project management. Is probably one of the most fun hats I get to wear because it's kind of running the operations world. So I kind of knew all facets of the business at that point. So, I knew everything from hiring, recruiting to, the termination and the paperwork and the whys behind it. So I got to see a little bit of everything with my time there.
That's awesome. So so I'd love your time as supervisor, team lead supervisor. That was the last time you really had a lot of impact on the actual floor activity, right? I mean, that's something I remember from my history is I learned quickly the floor people, the people leading that group were really the most impactful. When it all come down to performance, you show me an organization that has great mid-level, floor-level leadership, that's a great organ. You guarantee they're hitting their KPIs or consistently performing. So is that where you started to learn leadership? You really started to dial in that knowledge?
I'd say that was part of it, right? I think some people in their lives, however they're raised, lots of sports teams, lots of teamwork and unity. I think where I excelled was working with agents one-on-one, but working with peers at the same time. We had a great cohesive group of about 15 of us that worked side by side, shared best practices, really motivated each other, engaged each other. If someone was out, we'd work with their team, we'd work with our team. I would say it, helped me elevate, individuals' performance, but teams in general and department performances is really what you learn to focus on. Because at the end of the day, if your team does well but everybody else fails, it's not success. You really learn about just building a culture of unity and teamwork, and that's really what I've really enjoyed there.
So you spent all this time, you hopped around while you were at Wells, and then, I mean, what happened next? Obviously 5 star.
Yep, 5 star. So we got kind of a fun transition how it all happened for us. So the three owners at 5 star were also all bosses of mine at Wells Fargo. So kind of fun that it's kind of how my transition happened. But they came over to the company 15 years ago, bought the company, and then I was brought on right behind them about 6 months to kind of run the sales division. We were 80 people, one location. Knew there was kind of something here, but didn't know what was here. So really just kind of dove in and learned the outsourcing, the BPL, the call center world, and have just continued to educate myself over my 15 years here on everything, from the hiring, recruiting to training to software to engagement tools. So been kind of a fun journey and fun ride for us, just with all the new tools and bells and whistles that are out there in our world.
So when I actually visited, you guys were still a single location, but you were just starting to expand. I mean, that was what, 8 years ago, 7 years ago?
Oof, probably 2016. I know that date because we had just moved into our new building when you came. Yeah, so we had I'd been on board for a few years at that point, but yeah, so one location. On our peak, we grew to 5 locations across the U.S. And then COVID hit, right? And it just sent everybody packing. But you talk about stories that I think every call center has. We should have all wrote books about what we did to get people set up at home and how quickly we stood people up. But it was that you ask what keeps you, one of your questions I know is always fun, what keeps you up at night. Just thinking of that transition for a month was probably one of the most stressful times of my career. But again, all the teamwork, all the unity that you build for your whole career kind of set us up for that, just to continue to be successful and really not have any huge impact. So
Yeah, there's nothing quite like the MBA program in a contact center. There's no other place that you can have that many direct and indirect reports at that age. I mean, I was the same way. I had no business running a team that large, early on, but I was, and I mean, we learned by fire. I mean, that's why I think our industry, for the most part, pivoted a hell of a lot faster than anybody else, because we're used to being under fire. I mean, it's just the reality of our world. So let's jump into it. You brought it up, man. Let's start the conversational piece. So, I hear you. The reliving COVID would definitely make anybody that runs a contact center, have some fear. But there's got to be some other things that are keeping you up at night right now when it comes to our space. So, what does keep John up at night?
I'd say one of the biggest things is how you develop the next round of leaders. Like you alluded to, in a work at home environment, I look at how I met people and engaged with people. It was literally the water cooler talk. It was in the break room. It was in conference rooms. How you develop leaders and just engage and get to know people, it's just changing so dynamically. So people who promoted me at Wells Fargo met me in the break room. I don't know how you recreate that in a work at home environment like we do today. So I'm fearful that the opportunities I had, there's people that will deserve those opportunities and will not get them just because of how our culture has shifted to more of that work from home model, kind of more individual type performance.
So I know you. If there's something that's keeping you up, what are you doing about it?
I'd say the biggest thing, I look at my career, and I've been super fortunate to have some really good mentors that have really helped me with my career, but really just in general, right? I mean, I've got you and Darren, who I've known for, since I started 15 years, who've really just been advocates. And there's other groups that we work with, and you just talk and network and get to know people. I return that favor every time I get the opportunity to meet someone new or engage or pull someone out of their comfort zone, and the opportunities to mentor some of our team members. I will always take the time just to kind of, we're all busy, we all have things going on, but just to spend time working with and developing that next group of leaders, I think is so important, and something I always take pride in.
I've been lucky too. I mean, mentors, are the reason why I am where I am. It's not that, guys like you and I aren't smart or capable or driven. All those things are there. But if it wasn't for, I know for me, I can only speak to, if it wasn't for my mentors, I'd never be anywhere near where I'm at today. People taking shots on me when, they probably didn't have to, but they saw something. For me, I've been working from home since early 2000s. It was not a big pivot for me because I ran Europe, Middle East, and Asia. I mean, remote employees, you learn quickly how to force that engagement. But I agree. I mean, in the center in particular, a lot of seeing how people interact with other, agents interacting with other agents, agents interacting with leadership, volunteering, being a part, engaging. You see a different level, and they're definitely, it's a challenge to do that remotely. I don't know if you do this, but I often find myself really having to force, time on camera, interaction time, and still find opportunities and ways to get FaceTime, because you cannot replace that. You can't. There's just no way. I mean, any tricks out there that you've been leveraging, how to kind of force your way into seeing that?
I would say you're spot on. I think where the biggest struggle is people have gotten comfortable at home.
Yeah.
So you look at, you look kind of back 5 years, and you could do dinners and fun at, outings with groups of people because it got them out of the office, right? So they were excited. But now you're pulling them out of their homes and they're not as excited. So people have just become accustomed to being at home all the time. So,
Right.
just those face-to-face in-person activities, you and I have talked about it multiple times. How do you engage people who don't want to go out? So one of the fun things we started 4 years ago is, a lot of our clients here are work at home environments, so they don't see us. We can't really go on site. Some of them don't have sites. Some of them love for us to come, but very few. I would say maybe 10 to 15% of our clients love when we come on site. The rest of them are just kind of used to working at home, like that new normal. So we kind of force our clients to come see us once a year. So once they're here, we kind of cover all expenses as 5-star, just because the face-to-face is just so important to build relationships. And we do some fun activities and events, just to kind of pull people out of their norms. I would say that's one of the biggest differences we do here, just from an engagement standpoint, to keep networking, keep building relationships with our clients.
Are you doing the same thing with the agents, junior and senior leadership as well?
Yep. So all of them are invited. With our agents, in the U.S., we're in 30 some states. We do some on-site events in Sioux Falls still, so anybody within an hour comes on site once a month, which is kind of fun. I think it's tomorrow, and we grill out, and do some
Right.
fun things. They are all invited again to when we do our client events, to host them. Same thing, just you name an activity. Archery we're doing this year. We're going to do some tours, some wine tasting, some tequila tasting events, just so some fun things to engage, and just keep getting to know people.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask you, reach into your crystal ball and pull me out what you see happening in this industry over the next 5 years.
Ooh, every article you read, I would have said AI's, eating our lunches, a month ago, but now they're saying it's going to take like 40 years for AI to be as efficient as everybody thinks. It is just an unknown. I always have said probably 2 years from now is where I think, self-help, artificial intelligence in the contact center space starts to become transformational. Today I think we're incremental. where you can get 10 to 15% bumps in productivity or, some self-help options. But I think we're 2 years away from truly transformational. The technology that I see winning, good, bad, or indifferent, is the real-time interpretation, which we've talked about. I think that's my personal opinion is that was the first technology I saw that said that will change the world. So that's probably what I'm most excited for, is just to see how that transforms the contact center, but ultimately the globe, as those new tools continue to roll out.
So you think 2 years is really where we start seeing the big transformation?
Correct.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, obviously we've talked a lot about interpretation, translation services, accent neutralization. Those are, the interpreter, I agree. I mean, there's a whole $1 billion segment of our industry that, is basically, less than a year away from, just complete disruption.
Yep.
And I hear all the talk about it's not there. The interpreter today is there. Translation, actual real time, where the models are, guessing really accurately what your next words are going to be. And in real time translating, that's not that far off. It's a complete game changer for a whole segment of the market. But so you don't see significant bumps in, like, the conversational analytics obviously drops some money to the bottom line. Agent guidance, agent assist, when done well, drops some to the bottom line. But you don't see the conversational bots really taking a large percentage of the traffic for a period of time.
I think it depends on the size of your organization, right? If you were the Wells Fargo, the Verizon, the AT&Ts of the world, I think those are, when you have so many inquiries that are so similar and so non-complex, those are obviously going to happen. But I think those bots and IVAs and chatbots have been around for years. They're just more accepted today. We're only 1,100 agents. The things we do here are, we always say, we call it ICE, right? Emotional, urgent, and complex. There's really no way to automate huge chunks of our business today, because half the time people don't even know how to ask the question they're looking for, or it's so emotional or high touch that most companies and most people are not ready for a conversational bot to take that over. So we see, with the agent assist and auto note summarization, I would say those we've seen a 10 to 15% bump. I think those are easy wins for anybody. As the tech continues to get better, and authentication's been big for us. Those are the little wins, but then the training, the hiring recruiting tech, the engagement technology that's out there, those are really have been our biggest wins in the contact center, I would say.
Yeah. This sounds like the stuff that really makes the agents better, helps improve, performance, experience, all those things is really where you guys are finding the biggest bumps. How about the people side? I mean, do you see that changing at all? Obviously you're adding a bunch of tech to help the people be better. Have you started to see clients, prospects start to look to try to, avoid or reduce the people?
I think that's always, the first, I wouldn't say how to avoid the people. It's maybe you look at it differently, right? If, I look at US talent, nearshore and offshore talent, and there's different price points, and then you could get into a digital agent, right? I would say most are hesitant of a digital agent today because you could go offshore for a similar price point, as today. So I would say we're from the BPOs are fun because you talk to half of them and half are running from technology and don't think it's going to exist. I would say we're fully embracing the machine learning, the bots, full on. We have full digital agents for some partners now. It's been a fun transition for us to learn it all, but I wouldn't say that tech has transformed their business. It may have taken 10 to 15% again of those inquiries. That's always the number we always seem to fall in. It's like 11, 15, I think 18% is the highest lift we've gotten from one new initiative. But super, I mean, I'd say just keep watching it and keep learning it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you guys definitely have doubled down on the idea of bringing it all together. Which, I mean, I can't tell you how long I've been telling all of my friends that own BPOs to, that they better have a strategy beyond just putting humans in a seat. So, love to watch the growth. Um, so what else do you see? Do you see, international versus, nearshore versus domestic, especially with that new bill that just got put out? Where do you think this is going to head, man? I mean, I said crystal ball. I mean, that might have a huge impact.
You look at pros and cons of bills, right? I always look at us, our advantage is we are a U.S. company, but I
Yeah.
don't know how you'd regulate a business coming to me and then me having agents for them, near shore or offshore, right? I don't know how you would know that because I
It was,
wouldn't probably
oh,
know if they're registered or not.
yeah.
On the
It was. It's a good question, right? I mean, because if you're the one hiring, and they did include, call centers, contact centers, meaning BPOs, as part of that bill, as a line item that they had to register if they were moving any seats offshore that should be, domestic seats, or, that the job supposed to be here, right? So you're going to have, if it passed through in its current form, you would have to register for all of those clients. And maybe that's something that a client all of a sudden says, hey, instead of us managing the registration and all the stuff that goes with that, maybe that's another reason to outsource.
uh,
Maybe.
It definitely could. I think where I would say it's, the bills, I like the idea behind it, right? As we continue to bring, thousands of manufacturing jobs to the US. I like
Right.
the idea of having, contact centers here. Again, the scariest thing to think about is, does that just rev up AI and digital agents and bots? If you have to pay the rates in the US, which we know are the highest in the world, is that just going to, really put throttle down the AI and self service?
Yeah. I think naturally you have to assume that, right? I mean, you can't compare, 10 sub $10 or even, teens, mid-teens compared to, 40 fully loaded, if you're talking benefits, leadership and all costs included. Businesses can't afford that. I mean, they just can't. You don't add that back to the bottom line. Nobody runs a business like that. They can't. Um, so I think it naturally has to have that impact at some level. I mean, the way that bill's currently written, I mean, it basically, that's the first thing as I had it, threw it into Grok and summarized it and started picking through the details. It became obvious to me that it's, of course, now they did have line items in there about AI utilization where it's taking jobs, and to still have to register and follow some processes. And I do agree that every AI tool should announce that it is AI. I think that's kind of a no-brainer. I think that's only fair to consumer. Give them the option to opt out. Which adds an interesting layer to this whole thing, right? Because if you're forced to give them an option to opt out, how many people are actually going to opt to talk to a live person? I mean, there's a lot of questions in this bill. Now we know, we've been legislated to death for our entire careers, in the contact center space. So, I mean, it'll change. No bill ever gets through, scot-free without changes. But I'm curious, to see how this one rolls. Yeah, I mean, what's your thoughts, man? Do you think this thing lands? Do you think, I mean, this administration, they've been able to get some things through.
I mean, it's just interesting, right? You look at all the global brands already, and if you think of the biggest, if you think of Fortune 500 companies in the world, most of them have presence all over the world already. Um, so it's, whether you move in a contact center, from one location to another location, I think that's just business, right?
Yeah.
Um, I like it. I don't think it's going to have a huge impact, to be honest. If anything, again, like I said, AI is going to keep getting um, throttled down and keep progressing even faster.
Yeah. Yeah. That's my suspicion is this will just force the acceleration and people will continue to adopt and, push the boundaries. I think they have to. I think, a registration, look, we've had that in, the FCC with TCPA and, do not call registrations and, different interactions in the outbound world. It's not unheard of. I mean, so that piece doesn't scare me. The $10,000 a day fine. Um, you know, I mean, let's see how far that goes. But in reality, it's just tied to that registration. What's the implications if? I mean, I'm not 100% sure where that piece is going to land.
Yep.
But I mean, I could see some of this making through. And I could definitely see this administration pushing something through to try to create more jobs.
Yeah. You always look at it too. Consumer adoption kind of, spurs everything. I would say the adoption of AI is only growing, exponentially. I would say the adoption of, companies or people, individuals getting used to speaking with or talking with people near shore, offshore. As you said earlier, the accent neutralization technology. There's a lot more chat and email and digital support than ever. Those are functions that are done behind the scenes and they really can be done anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So those make sense to me. I mean, I think consumer adoption only continues to grow, but ultimately they accept, the service and working with nearshore, offshore, or digital now. So
It's going to be an interesting time, man. A lot of continuous learning. I learn every day. It's never been more exciting for a person like me. I remember talking about machine learning like 14, 15 years ago, and people would just gloss over and, oh, you're talking about Terminator stuff. And now, I was at the gym the other day and a guy asked me, a little bit about it because he knew what I did. And just got into like a 15-minute conversation about, where AI is heading. And it's super fast. It's now become, almost so common that people are talking about, the fundamentals of models and, understanding which ones work for what they're trying to do with it. Right. Um, yeah, interesting times, dude. So, for the people that are listening that are just getting into this space, if you could give them some words, some advice, what would you recommend? Yeah.
I'd always say, always find a mentor, someone who's been in the space longer than you that can help guide you. I'm super, super fortunate. CEOs of companies have become friends of mine. People who started their own AI companies and own technology. It's always just keep networking and meeting people and engaging. Going to events, I think, is very important still. The first couple stink because you don't know many people, but then I meet a you and a Darren and, other people within this industry, and you just become friends over time. And that's ultimately what keeps you in the game, right? The
Yeah.
networks we've built, it's not you on an island by yourself learning technology, right? You have a Rolodex now of people you can call and bounce ideas off of. And I think that's what excites us about the industry is we know we're not in it alone. We continue to work together and just continue to evolve and grow. And ultimately, we've had a lot of fun. I mean, you look at where we were 15 years ago and the stuff we're doing now, it's night and day. And just being able to have, again, the people and the mentors, the network I've built, I would say is what really has kept me here.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. I mean, the network, especially today, the front end of jobs posted out on LinkedIn, and the AI tools that they're leveraging for analyzing resumes, and the fact that there are a lot of jobs and there are a lot of people out there hunting in our industry. Whether it's on the software side, the actual contact center side, there's a lot of people out there. And I've heard the stories from both sides. People apply to a job, they don't hear back ever. People get, they post a job and they get 1,000 damn resumes within 24 hours. I mean, it's no joke. In our industry, talking with a hiring executive in software, they posted a job and had 1,000 resumes within 24 hours.
Yep. I'll put it in perspective. So us as an organization, we just looked at it. We've received 120,000 job applicants this year. Only 6,000 of them passed the screening. So what you're learning is, you can use AI to apply for jobs. So there's tools that kick all those out. And then we pre-screen, specific qualifications. So those are the technologies I think that are super beneficial and super great, really for any organizations, that hire kind of the numbers we do, for seasonal spikes or for clients ramping. But I mean, when I heard 120,000 applications, if you had to manually review all of those, I mean, we'd have hundreds of recruiters to do that. So,
yeah, and it'd be way too expensive. I mean, you just couldn't. But that goes to show you that, I mean, there's a lot of people out there. I mean, whether they're using AI tools or not, they're looking, they're hunting. But yet our jobs numbers, at the national level, we're at all-time, low unemployment rates, right? So, it's, I don't know what's right or what's wrong, but I certainly know, some stuff don't add up. And it'll be interesting over the next, especially next couple of quarters, to see where, these numbers start actually landing. Because we really haven't seen the impact of this fully yet. A lot of the layoffs come with packages. They can't file for unemployment until the package is done. And we'll just start seeing those. So I mean, that's going down macroeconomics. That's like my hobby. I love that shit. You know that.
yep.
But you took me there. I mean, are you guys, so you're seeing huge, I mean, at 1,000, you're what, 1,100 seats right now?
Yep.
So 120,000, that means you're getting, I mean, my math isn't math and it's late afternoon, but I think that's like what, 10,000?
10,000 is like a month. Yeah. More than that even. It's unbelievable when we post. And again, I should have had him look at the stats of how many were posted by AI or applied, people can go to sites now and AI just does it for them, and how many of those got screened out. But the technology's there. It's fun. I would say from a ROI standpoint, the hiring recruiting software is hands down ROI significantly faster than anything else we've used. But ultimately allows us just to hire better candidates. Because then the people we do talk with have been so screened out and so vetted out by the time they get to a hiring manager. It's more about culture than it is about the history of, their career.
You guys actually, if it was posted by AI, and there's easy ways to tell, right? I mean, these tools know where it's coming from, whether somebody manually entered it or automated the whole process, right? So you guys don't even let them in the door.
No.
I mean, there you go, folks. I mean, for those of you that are watching, if you want a piece of advice, do not use AI tools to automate your application process. Take time, read the application, understand the job, and do the work like we used to, like we always had to, before you apply.
And I always said, reach out to somebody, right? Like if you want a position, go to LinkedIn. It's easy to find people in those roles. And maybe it's not a hiring manager. Maybe it's someone that's, a call center manager or a supervisor, and you just shoot them a note and ask them about the day in their life. I think people would be surprised how many leaders are willing just to give insight into their worlds. And I think people are just hesitant to do that now.
Yeah, I mean, it's simple, right? I mean, and this goes back to our network discussion. Over the last, although I've done a lot of entrepreneurial things, joined a lot of early stage, worked with my mentor, started a few businesses, I mean, I don't know that within the last 10 years that I've taken a role that didn't come from a reference or a relationship. I just can't imagine in this day and age how if you don't have a strong network, by the time you get into, if you want to head down the path of leadership, by the time you get into that level of leadership, if you don't have a network, you're going to have problems.
Yep.
So I just double down on network.
Exactly. I think it even goes beyond leadership, right? Workforce, quality, analytics, AI. What was the number 2 job in the country right now are AI consultants. So if you're entering the workforce, like who does those roles? Who can help guide you? You've got a network of people that you work with now that are more than happy to share their experiences. And I think those are just the keys I would give that next generation, is just reach out and ask for help, or ask to meet someone that does something that you find interesting.
Yeah. And if you're at a center, ask to go to the events, volunteer, to go gather, sit at the learning events, meet people, shake hands, build your network. Do it now. There's no better time than yesterday. So, get started. So in this space, we're going through a ton of change, man. We all know it. We see it. You've given me your crystal ball. You said 2 years, but I'm going to go back and I'm going to hold your feet to the fire a little bit. And I said 5 years. So let's rewind a little bit and let's go back. I should have done it. I should have did it before, but I started thinking, oh wait, he got away with that one. So 5 years. 2 years, we start seeing a big impact. 5 years, where do you see our space?
I look at it, 2, 3, 5. I would say 5 years. It's crazy to think 50% of the jobs we do today won't be here. They'll be done with AI, or they'll be done, someplace else. But I think they'll be replaced by other types of jobs. Obviously, things just have a way of evolving. But that's the crystal ball, is which jobs won't be here and which ones will be. That's the $1 million question.
Yeah. All right. So that was very vague, very politically, kind of, in between.
You tell what? Okay, in 5 years, where are we going to be? Are we going to be full? Am I going to be a robot? I don't even have to come to work anymore. It just knows me well enough to do all the talking.
Oh, there's an idea, right? We already know there's companies out there building a digital version of you for exactly this.
Yep.
That listens to you, that understands, the way you think, understands the audience, can come and actually represent you in a meeting. So, is that realistic within 5 years? The robot side, robotics are moving fast. But they still have a hard problem, right? The move. What I think a lot of people fail to realize is that, we designed a world for us with disposable thumbs, and the way we learn and the way we grow and interact with things, to build a robot that interacts to be able to be in our home and do all our chores. Sounds great, but in reality, unless Tesla, makes pretty big leaps, having a Optimus in all of our houses is highly unlikely within 5 years, 10 years. But then there's the implications of what happens when we hit AGI. All the scientific breakthroughs and all the problems that AGI will solve. Maybe in reality, as soon as AGI hits, then solutions start, falling from the tree like, apples ready to pick. You never really know, right? That's 5 years is a hard one. That's why I asked the question, man. Because it's not an easy. There's no easy answer to this.
The most fun question and the most interesting topic is healthcare and cures for cancer and other diseases throughout the world. Because they talk about, how they can run tests so much faster with AI. That's the interesting topic, is what if we're now curing everything and people can now live for, extended periods of time? What does that do to our workforce? And what does that do to our, ultimately the world as we continue to move forward?
Yeah. So let me ask this. Let me kind of same idea, same thread. I'm just going to pull at it from a different angle. So assuming that, let's say, a lot of people who are a hell of a lot smarter than me that work within the large model companies estimate that we're, probably realistically a couple years out from AGI. So with that being said, how do you think, getting to that 5 year time period, once you hit AGI, then what? What's your thoughts? How humans, you know,
How do we interact, right? That's the scary thing, is it more, are we more glued to our cell phones now than ever? Education, how does that pole vault? Is college not even a thing anymore? And people can just build, curriculums online for themselves individually versus going to classes. Um,
yeah.
it's
So you got kids.
I do. That's just, isn't that just, and they're at scary ages where I'm like, oh, one's 2 years out, one's 4, and one's 6. So it's like, oof. I'm at that 5 year pinnacle to start thinking about.
Yeah. So what are you kind of steering them towards? Um,
I honestly, the 2 year tech degrees, if my kid wanted to go do that, I would be fully on board. When I grew up, that was kind of a frowned upon, those trades. Um, I don't see anything wrong with those types of careers anymore. Or now, just start out, at a younger age, work part time in a contact center or a retail outlet, and just get experience and exposure and continue to meet people. I think those are the differentiators. Someone who you and I just said it. We didn't get promoted or find new jobs because of our education. We found it because of our networks. So the sooner and the younger you get out to start meeting people, the better.
yeah, it's an interesting challenge. I mean, my kids went, accounting, and my daughter went through, got her psychology degree. I'm with you. I'm a trades guy. I mean, I look at the fundamentals. Trade companies, these roll-ups of plumbers and roofers. I mean, they're getting software like multiples now. I mean, and in reality, you think it's hard to build a robot. I mean, now I did see a robot that does roofing, by the way. That is actually a thing now. I mean, it's pretty big, it's pretty clunky, but it isn't going to take long once you have something that functions to shrink the technology. I mean, chips have proved that over and over again. That we have once you figure out how to do it, miniaturizing and making it mobile, more deployable. I mean, that's one. But electrical engineering, if you're going to go like a 4 year, and go through full college, something that's involved with building power plants, designing and engineering, working in, technology, on that side. But writing code, it used to be when my kids were growing up, I always thought data was the logical thing, right? Even as they started to get older, data scientist, coder was always a big thing. But now, I mean, there's no point in going through that. Um, I mean, I suppose at like architecture level, there will always be a certain need, but nothing sustainable. And right now, I mean, I'm with you. Healthcare. I mean, there's still a big need for nurses. There's still a big need for the human side of that.
Yep.
That won't go away. But the technology, I mean, like you were talking about, I mean, gene therapy, folding, what is it, AlphaFold, and the gene, the protein folding that they're doing now. Yeah, that's not my world. Obviously, y'all who are watching this, I'm a contact center guy. But I read enough to be dangerous, and yeah, and I am a fitness and supplement guy, and I'm always looking for an edge. As we get older, I'm always looking for something that's coming up, that I can play around with to see if I can get another 5 pounds out of the bench. You know how it is.
If
Well,
anyone on your podcast can relate to that, it's probably me. So
it's it's you for sure. It's gonna get fascinating, man. I mean, so. you remember when this all started, there was a whole conversation around UBI. I mean, early, like late 22, after ChatGPT launched in November of 22, like early 23 throughout that year, UBI was a pretty common conversation, right? Hasn't happened, nobody's talking about it anymore. I keep talking about it because sooner or later, I personally believe that we will absolutely need to deploy some kind of universal beneficial income until we figure out, the efficiency gains in GDP by the automations, the productivity that will increase to get to that point where that productivity makes it so that, we maybe don't necessarily need to do a job like we know it today. That's going to there's going to be a painful period, that we're going to be in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. But in every other industrial revolution, it took decades to get there. Mass deployment wasn't possible. You were buying big machinery, you were laying wire back in the electricity. And even with computers, you had physical computers that you had to install. And, it wasn't until the home PC really became in most households that really that took off. So none of these industrial revolutions ever took, 10 years. I mean, they were 20, 30, 50, 100. As you go back, the timeline of each industrial revolution was longer. This one, I mean, this is going to be like 5, 10 years, and the whole world is going to shift. I don't see how we can we can build new jobs to replace the ones that will be automated away. It's just my opinion. And I'm not trying to be like, fear monger or anything like that. It's just first principles, right? I mean, you can't build new jobs in the speed at which this stuff is developing and moving and automating. You just can't. Yeah, no, you think I'm
Nope. I think again, that's where we talked about it the whole time. Keep networking, knowing people, because that's what's going to get you your next. As these young kids come through the ranks, it is all about who you know, good, bad, or indifferent. That's just how the world works now.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. So, all right, man. Who, if you could pick, who in this industry would you love to see on here?
So I've been fortunate again, like, there's lots of me's out there in the country, but there's 3 groups I've actually gotten to know well and worked with like on a monthly basis, just picking their brains. That would be interesting. I think they all have different stories. And it's funny because we're all very similar stories. But I think Thomas Laird, Sam Lafetta, and John Giuliano would be 3, leaders in the industry, all different upbringings, different walks, but all would be interesting to talk with as well.
Awesome. Well, I know all of the names. Thomas is the only one really that I have a long-term relationship with. I'll definitely see what I can do, man. Um, I always appreciate our conversations. We always, go down different paths that are always engaging. And hopefully, the audience gets something from this. I'm sure they will.
I would say again, anyone who wants to get into the tech space, you're a perfect resource to talk with. I don't know why someone wouldn't reach out when you work with hundreds of companies now and hundreds of consultants, right? Anyone looking to get in the tech world, you're probably one of the best resources I know in the industry. And just good person, good to talk with. So I would definitely recommend they reach out to you. So
appreciate that, man. Nothing but love. But don't reach out unless you want the truth. I'm warning you. The people that know me know that candor is not a problem for me. Don't ask a question unless you want the answer, right? So I appreciate having you on, man. I really enjoyed it, and look forward to seeing you out in the field. Hopefully soon. Our October-ish.
November for sure. we'll be
Remember.
together, and then I'm sure we'll be together at something before that. So
Absolutely, man. Look forward to seeing you. Thanks.
awesome.